we're here tonight talking about Kramer's Ergot. The
Ergot.
Ergot? Seriously?
I mean, usually I don't correct people, but I figure we're in a
No,
museum.
I think you should, because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
Ergot.
But why does it say Go on the website? It's like the latest Go. Oh, you're going to have to fix that. It's a BB edit. It's a quick fix. Before we really get started, and I'll explain what exactly tonight is going to be in a second, but and why I'm sitting here. But the books that are produced by many of these artists are available upstairs in our bookstore. If you haven't gotten a chance to get them, come back another time and go on up there. I also want to let you know that one of the presenters tonight, Shary Boyle, has a book that's available. Wow, I didn't even see the picture on the back. You can't see it, but it's really hardcore. She's like smoking a cigarette, and she's much nicer in person though than that picture is. Witness My Shame is her book, and we have that available for sale only down here. So if you're interested in getting that, see me after. $20. It's a steal.
It's an excellent book. Super good book.
So, what tonight is Kramer's Ergot. This is it sounds like funny to say it that way.
You'll get used to it.
Okay. We're kind of doing and what we're talking about here is a kind of preface or an introduction, as if you were reading the book, and the rest of the evening will unfold sort of a live version of the book in a sense, in that we have a lot of the contributors here tonight presenting other things that they do, films, a light show, etc., and reading from some of their comics. So, but this beginning part is just going to be talking about, well, what the heck is it to begin with? And we thought we'd just do just a brief introduction of me asking Sammy some questions. Sammy Harkham is the founder and compiler and contributor to Kramer's. And so we'll just talk about the origin of what this thing is and how it came about. And Sammy, we talked the other day, but let's revisit some of those things that we talked about the other day, because that's fun. It's like a time travel. But talk about sort of the genesis of this and how it came about. You said you were interested in seeing this stuff and finding it and pulling it all together.
Well, the first thing it was a zine when I was in high school.
Which is what?
This was 97, 98. 98, January.
And you were a senior
February.
in high school in 97, 98?
I graduated in 98, in June of 98. Feel old?
I do. Thanks. Thank you for that.
And it started out as a zine, so there was like comics, a lot of found stuff, drawings I liked from other people. But it was just something I sort of put together really quickly as sort of an experiment.
But like a photocopied kind of zine? Like
Photocopied.
The way I would
had
imagine
access to a full color photocopier. So I basically spent a week at the copier learning how to do a mini, basically. You know, figuring out how to collate it and put it together. And so I made 10 copies of that. And then...
And what was the distribution on that one?
dropping them off at Meltdown, I think.
Uh-huh.
And then...
and they were just free giveaway things?
No, you know what's weird is that I just sort of gave them... I was finishing it up right before going on a trip to Australia. So I just dropped them off the day of the flight to Meltdown, and I gave them to Gaston, the owner. And I forgot to even talk to him about a price or whatever.
And Meltdown, for those that don't know.
Meltdown is a comic book shop on Sunset and Formosa. Good comic book store. And that was the first thing. And then I did a couple more minis and zines and things like that. More and more comics. And then when I was at Cal Arts, the first year I was there, I did the first like comic book issue, which was like a proper comic book, you know. And that was me and just a few people I knew whose work I liked, and you know, I thought I would have enough work to do a bunch of these things. Of course, once you start doing it, you realize how much work it is and stuff like that.
Right. And now you're on issue 6, is in production now?
Issue 6 is almost done.
And it's a yearly effort or a
basically
somewhat?
I would like it to come out once a year, but depending on how much other stuff I'm doing, you know. Like there was a big gap between 5 and 6, but hopefully between 6 and 7, it'll only be, 6 or 7 months. it's just whatever. Like, there's no like set schedule
whatever.
with something like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. Well, I'm interested also in just how you locate some of this material, because it's gone from, a zine of 10 copies at Meltdown to something that, like Time Magazine says is the best anthology ever, hands down, of anything. So, I mean, you're obviously finding some really strong work, and I mean, the contributors to this one that's on the table.
Well, basically the first 3 issues were just people I knew, other artists that I had met, but I wasn't super satisfied with the work. I could see that there was a lot of growth. It just didn't feel like it sort of needed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling like I wasn't going to do another issue after 3. But then it felt like 2002, I was seeing a lot of really interesting work, especially coming out of Providence and that whole area, know. And there was just so much work coming out that no publishers were really looking at all. Like Fantagraphics or Drawn and Quarterly or any of the other smaller comic book publishers. And it felt like this book, if I could compile all this stuff and give each artist space to sort of do what they want, give them the option of color, run stuff that isn't even comics, run stuff like, sketchbooks and collages and things, that to me got me excited as just a reader, And I was seeing this stuff, there's a couple places online where you can find stuff, and then slowly, you contact one artist, you get some books, you hear about another guy, you write him a letter, you send him $5, you ask him, do you have any comics you can send me? And then slowly just sort of compiling all this stuff. And then that's what 4 ended up being. And that felt really good. Like, that felt like a book that I could sort of stand behind much more than the other ones, because it felt like all this stuff, you wouldn't be seeing it otherwise. At least, I mean, you could see it in minis and stuff, but this was a place to sort of put it all together,
Well, it seems to me, and maybe I'm just not plugged into the anthology community, but it seems like that format of pulling everything together is kind of having a great moment right now, and it has to, from DVD compilations where you can buy an entire season of something to McSweeney's, Kramer's. There's a lot of anthologizing that's happened right now. It's kind of having a really great, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this. Maybe this has been happening all the time. But it seems like the quality is so high right now. It really seems like you're part of a moment, which is, it must
There's
be.
no good movie magazines, though.
There's no what?
No good movie magazines.
No good movie magazines.
Go figure.
Well, there's not many good movies, so it's tough to pull that all
True,
together.
True. Anyway.
But anyway, and I wondered if you had any other thoughts about that in terms of, because for me, even blogging to a certain extent, where you have something like a collection of different blogs that are coming together, is that same idea of pulling all that information, or in the maybe more traditional comic book world of superheroes or that kind of thing, trade paperbacks are very big right now, and those are the things that are selling, and those are the things that you see at Barnes and Noble. And that, is it just...
No, I don't know. I don't really think about it. I don't know. I only do the book because there isn't a book like it that already exists. If someone took over and did an anthology where you could see all this work from all over the place, then I wouldn't feel the need to do it. You know what I mean? I just think most publishers and art institutions and galleries are really, really slow and really, really boring for the most part. Mm-hmm. I say that in the Hammer Museum, which is putting on this event, but
very slow, very
for
boring.
the most part, it just seems like it takes a long time for stuff to finally sort of penetrate,
Right.
And
well, we were talking about that too yesterday in terms of just how long it takes for certain artists, individual artists or collectives to sort of break through and make it to this mainstream.
I mean, that was the funny thing, because when I did Kramer's 4, and it was like the first time a lot of these guys had been printed offset, in a book. To most people, it was super new, but to me and other nerds, it was like, it was just a place to put it all, because it had existed for so long. All the artists from Providence, they've been doing comics for years,
Right.
you know, but you sort of have to search it all out. And I think most people just, I don't know, they're not really interested in searching it out so much.
Well, it's
know.
tough to know where to look. I mean, I think if you're not going to
But if you're
alternative
excited,
press expos and that kind of thing, I mean, really,
Right,
are
right,
going to.
right.
I mean, now there's some of the artists have websites, but at that point, that wasn't really the case. You couldn't just search some of the artists that are in the book and come up with something. So it's tough to. That's why I was interested in sort of how you found this stuff to begin with.
I don't know.
Because
I can't
now you
remember.
must have submissions and that kind of thing happening.
You know, I think once, you know, you get in touch with one person and they sort of lead you to the next person and they send you more stuff from other people and they give you, you see someone's work and you somehow get their phone number. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm always looking for stuff just because I like looking at stuff, you know? Like, even if I wasn't doing Kramer's, I'd still be looking around just as much. You know, every time I go into a new comic book shop, I'm always looking through all the minis and all the zines, and I'm always trying to find stuff, you know?
Well, I don't want to go too long without, maybe we can take some questions from the audience.
Sure.
And so I think we can make this happen with some mics that are out there, and we'll bring up the house lights.
Steve, yeah?
Steve
Steve has
being a little much. I think in the last, 10, 15 years, it can be defined any number of ways. But let's just say in recent years, there has been, I think, an increasing explosion of exciting work by more and more people, especially younger people. And I think I almost regard it almost as an avalanche. I think it's, if it's a movement, it's a come of age. And I think what you've done is you've articulated that for a new generation. And I'm not saying it's, I mean, obviously the last issue has more than just so-called recently emerged artists in there, but you know, you've done it with a new point of view for this, I think, for this era. So I'm just pointing that out.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason a lot of the artists weren't being published by other publishers and stuff was because the work sort of took a shift from being, it seemed like the last generation of cartoonists, you know, they were like trying to get more narrative, trying to hide their hand more, you know, like in the mold of like Chris Ware or Dan Clowes, where it's become so polished that you just read it and you don't think about the artist at all, you know? It's all about like being super, super subtle with your storytelling. And I guess like you started seeing all this work where it was about seeing the artist's hand, you know? It was about like sort of mixing all this stuff together where it reads like comics, even though it looks completely not like comics, you know? And of course it always takes publishers to, you know, a few years, you know? It's like, I'm sure when Gary Panner was starting to publish, or when he was starting to do stuff, it probably took a long time for comic book publishers to be like, hey, this is legitimate, you know? They just think it's crazy. Even
Right.
now, it's like Drawn and Quarterly and Fantagraphics won't publish Chris Forge's, right? And he's definitely one of the most amazing cartoonists working, you know? And like, to me, it's sort of mindless. Like, how could you not ask this guy? You know, because when I see like some of these guys, you see the work and you see like 150 years of cartooning all the way up right onto the page. You know, you can see all these influences of all this different stuff, and it's all working so well in this like one artist vision, you know? And I guess the one thing maybe what Steve is saying is like, maybe what Kramer's did was just sort of show people that there's a whole world of cartooning, you know? There's a whole world of stuff, and it's legitimate. By putting it in a book, for some reason, by publishing it in a big fat book, it gives it legitimacy.
Right.
You know? I don't know. Just retarded.
Well,
But whatever.
something more than that. Wow.
So you, big fat book. Is the next one going to be a big fat book?
Who's talking?
Can you?
It doesn't matter. The next one is going to be another big fat book.
Wow.
Yeah. 340 pages, 360 pages. There's like a Japanese cartoonist from the 30s whose work is completely out of print because he was sort of a fascist. But the work is incredible. We're running the sketchbooks of a Danish artist from the 70s. So it's a whole range of stuff. And then a lot of new people, all sorts of things. It should be good. Hopefully it'll be good.
There's a great, in this current issue, there's a great Gary Panter contribution, which is individual sketchbook pages.
One from each year.
One from each year for 30 years or so, 1971 to 2000 or so.
2001.
2001, 30 years. So, right. But there's, when I was looking through it, because it's not always clear as soon as you're opening up this book as to who is who.
Yeah, that's on purpose, sort of. To not have introductory paragraphs and making it like an art book. I want it to feel like comics, because I didn't want to, when doing 4 and having all this work that was super new to most people, I didn't want it to feel like an art book, like comics have like evolved into this, this like high art or something, like Drawn and Quarterly already does, like Drawn and Quarterly is a publisher. They do an anthology and they sort of do that where they run a little intro before each strip and it makes it all feel very pleasant and sort of nice. Whereas I wanted to do something that was like super energetic and sort of exciting and embracing its like innate comic bookness or something.
Right.
But
it seems that there's such a nice parallel or it's not deriving from, but stemming from Gary Panter's work to there's a lot of, I mean, you might not be able to tell in some of those things that it's Gary Panter over a Matt Brinkman one. And so, I mean, you can tell, of course, but it's
overlap,
great to see
sure.
those things together and combined in one thing.
Sure.
But anyway, maybe there's another question out there. If not, we'll get right to it.
We done? Yay.
Okay, I'm just gonna go right into talking about these images. This is one of my drawings, collages, and technical difficulties. Okay. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you something to kind of get it started. So I kind of, like Sammy was talking about with Kramer's, a lot of the people in the book come from like different backgrounds and stuff. For me, I definitely was like interested in comics and art and things like that, but I think it was zines that really opened up the whole thing for me. I didn't really like follow a lot of the independent comics and art comics. Mostly I feel like being associated with Kramer's and Sammy putting me in the book really exposed me to a lot of that stuff. And so being in the book, at the same time people found out about my work, I was kind of finding out about a lot of the work in the book. With the exception of people who were already involved in zines, I was much more familiar with them. But here, those are just a few of my zines. But King Cat was one of the biggest influences for me. Up until then, I had made little comics and I'd Xerox them, but I didn't really know about this like greater world of people who did this stuff, and it's actually was really inspiring because it's kind of a community, and people would, especially in the 90s, there was kind of an explosion of this sort of thing. And John Porcellino, who does King Cat, and he's been doing it for like a million years. And so when I found King Cat, I was really excited, and I wrote to him, and I sent him some of the comics I had been doing, and he included me in that. And I was, by that time I was 15, and it connected me to a lot of the other people who did zines, Dave Kirsch, and if I didn't actually become pen pals with them, I would at least know their work and trade, and really sort of like a non-commercial kind of world of just people who kind of are telling their stories and making things in a format that is very direct and unedited. I guess no one really tells you what to do. So ever since then, I've made a lot of zines. Here's a few. Like this one here, and some of these. This one here is actually the very first one I did that was in John's catalog. All the way up until actually this one, Please Don't Give Up, was the first thing that was in Kramer's, and that's actually based on a sketchbook that I kept. So here's a few sample spreads. These are kind of just more art and using different materials and different printing techniques. That's a joke. But like the book is spray painted and assembled out of different things I could find. But that's sort of like how I came into comics, I think, other than like reading Spider-Man and stuff like that. But it's kind of perfect, and I don't really know if I am a person who does comics, but I really do love reading them and being kind of mixed in with this, even if my work doesn't always work the same way. But this is sort of a painting about comics here. And this book actually maybe should have been earlier, but before King Cat, this was sort of my biggest inspiration. This is a whole book that told you that you could make your own comics, and it's from the 70s. And it recommended like using mimeograph machines and things like that. Like Xerox wasn't as prevalent. But I checked this book like a million times out of the library, and one day it disappeared, and it was on the discontinued rack for sale, so I bought it. But what was great was it included all these comics that kids had done. And I read them as if they were like real comics. Like I was totally into Ecolo Master and so that and zines kind of like reaffirmed that I could just sort of go and make a comic, and I didn't really have to look like a Marvel comic. And I probably because of that, I've always really liked comics that kids make. So this is just a handful of the collection of comics I've saved from kids. This book actually I found at a garage sale. This is someone actually published a book that was by a kid. These are really inspiring to me because they just are completely done for fun. And in the art world and even the comics world, a lot of times people, after a while, they kind of don't do it that way anymore. So I really love just to see what they do, like the weird ways that kids make comics. Another thing for me is kind of doing things in sketchbooks has always been really, working in sketchbooks is very like freeing. And when sometimes for me, like if I'm trying to do something, it's not going to turn out good, but if I'm not trying, it will. So a sketchbook is kind of a safe place to just make things, and you're not really doing it on purpose. And from that, you might actually get some of your best work out. And so another thing that I really love to look at is other people's sketchbooks. And this is one of my favorite. This is a spread from Saul Steinberg's Passport, which is just this amazing, amazing book of the famous New Yorker cartoonist. But his ideas are just so pure. And here you can see this drawing he did on a chair, and really like playing around with just like how he actually does the drawing. And I felt like that is sort of a way that I relate to comics, is just exploring a visual idea like that as a way of communicating. So in the first Kramers, I did a few different stories, but one of them was this, which I think a lot of people have never read, who have read the book, because it doesn't look like a comic, and that, I mean, that's kind of okay with me, but people always say, I like the sketchbook. But when I made it was different than my normal sketchbooks, and I kind of wanted people, I mean, I didn't really plan on printing it, so the idea was that you just flip through it and you sort of experience how one thing leads to the next. But here's some of the other ones, and this was in Kramer's 4, although it's printed out of order. there's a printer mistake. But and then this is for Kramer's 5, kind of showing a little bit more of the process. Because for me, process is really interesting, usually more than the final piece. And I think with the way, like Sammy talked about, Kramer's being assembled, is you don't really get this sense that there's finality to it, because everything's just kind of runs into each other. And it's almost just this snapshot of all the stuff that's going on and all these different worlds and places and time, like from Gary's sketchbooks to everything else in the book. But it's just, so for me, the process is kind of important. And this, for these pages, I made a sketchbook that was taped, each page taped together, and then I could cut the tape apart and scan them separately. So I thought of it as pages that connected. And also, like I said, it's kind of to keep things informal and to kind of keep the pressure off. I've always tried to come up with ways where I just can kind of make things and not worry about it. So for this page of strips, these were all folded up. Each of these things here was like folded into tiny little strips, and then I just carried them in my pocket until they were filled up. This is kind of a little small edition of a children's book I did, but I kind of wanted to put it in here because it comes from the same spirit, I guess, of these drawings were not meant to be used for anything, and I just drew them, while I was having breakfast, and they were really little, and then I made a little zine out of it, and then Alvin Buenaventura had the idea to expand it into this children's book. And I was really proud of this, because if I had sat down to make a children's book, I don't think I probably would have been very nervous about it, and this was just very easy and fun. And so also similarly, collaboration for me is really kind of opens things up, because you don't know what's going to happen when there's another person involved. And this is a collaboration with Dave Kirsch, who lived in New York at the time, and we became pen pals through John P.'s catalog when we were both about 15. And we didn't meet until years and years later, but we started doing these books through the mail. We'd just mail them back and forth and fill them up. And it kind of became sort of somewhere between a letter and a comic. And then we would then chop them up and make totally different versions into zines. Is another collaboration with Saley O. And so that's another comic. This is just some more comics. These were in LA Weekly. These are these weird characters that I like making up stories about. It's a little bird and another animal that is of unknown species. And like I said, with zines, comics is sort of it's this weird thing where if you can think of a state, you'll kind of know who's in that state making comics like this, and or city or country, because it's very people seek out other people who are doing it, and so it's nice because it is kind of like a community. And these are just illustrations I did that kind of relate to comics, but I kind of like it when even the companies, all the people doing stuff, it's just very full of I don't know what I'm trying. Anyways, this is my room here, or this is my old room. I've learned to be more organized since then, but I wanted to talk about this because during these days, this is when I was working on the first Kramers, that kind of stuff. Actually, you can see right here, there's the sketchbook on the ground. But that's my cat, and she made it into a lot of that story. But at the time, I was really confused about how to make art that was actually going to be for public consumption, because everything just kind of was part of the pile, or mailed out to friends, or Xeroxed in a very small run. But I think what happened was I just started kind of taping stuff on the walls, and that helped me think of how stuff can be in more of a gallery setting, where you just kind of have to dig through stuff and explore. And it includes like reading books that are hanging and looking through, and just sort of all mediums combined. So this is sort of like this is sort of when I finally like got it out of my room. And here you can see like the sketchbooks I was working on with Dave, and I really didn't know where one thing ended and another began. So I just kind of always had a problem with editing, so I just kind of always just throw it all out there. And this is a lot more current. This is, well, I guess this is a year or two ago. But just kind of after a while, I started working that way on purpose, but still keeping it really, like I didn't know where it was going. But making things as I went that clustered. And here you can see this is like a sketchbook that unfolds into a million little houses. So that way I can work on paintings, but I could keep them in my pocket and not feel like they had to be paintings. And then this is sort of, that was my studio, and this is actually like in the gallery. And I was sort of trying to make this like neighborhood at the time. And here you can see this is the sketchbook dissected. There it is. So anyways, like that kind of, the way I've always worked is just sort of like, there's just a lot of stuff. And when I'm at home, like the stuff I make and the stuff that I bring home, sometimes it ends up in the art if I cut it up. And sometimes it's just kind of, I like to have a lot of things around that are interesting. So I thought I would kind of show you quickly some photos. I just kind of went around the apartment and the studio taking pictures of stuff I kept around. I really like tops. There's something like just amazing to me about like it's this really, really simple idea for a toy. And even now, I guess maybe they're getting a little outmoded, but the idea that like for some reason as like a human we like to see something just spin for no reason, and it or I don't really know why, but I've always really loved Robin Hood. And especially in the zine world, there's kind of this like whole Robin Hood mentality, because everybody steals from Kinko's. And they're kind of like, you know, it's like stealing from the man to give to the other poor people who want to read. But not that that justifies it, but I always kind of like that idea anyways. This actually kind of reminds me more of Paper Rad. But this really bizarre, I think, Peruvian weaving that kind of looks like video games. And this is actually a bowl that Saley had, but I really love these hot air balloons on it. And I like hot air balloons a lot, so I've saved them. I thought I'd show you kind of I don't really know why, but sometimes when you like something, I think you just kind of have to it's maybe going to lead you somewhere, so you just kind of have to focus on that thing and keep thinking about it. So a lot of times I'll just start collecting stuff, and I don't really know why. I really like machinery and factories, and it's weird, like you don't really notice it until you start thinking about it, but how many little crisscrossing lines there are when you look around your environment these days, just the telephone wires and the chairs and just everywhere, everything's so industrial. And then when I was growing up, I feel like I wanted to show you some of the children's books that I've kept with me and looked at a lot, like every year. These books in particular right here are part of the Brown Paper Skull book series. I loved these when I was little so much because I lived in this neighborhood where there was like one kid, and I lived like across the street from an alcoholic center and then just like old people. And these always had pictures of like all these kids like making music out of garbage, like making instruments out of garbage and building tree houses out of like stuff they found. And so this is sort of like my fantasy, and I think a lot of this stuff kind of comes back when I'm like making up a drawing. because in a way, like, it gave me a lot of hope to think like, well, okay, I don't really live in this environment, but I could like make some of this stuff myself, and I could kind of hope for that kind of world where people just are creative out of taking garbage and making it into stuff. And this kind of tree houses are another thing I've always kind of been obsessed with. Kind of like this weird way of living more integrated with nature. Also, I really always have liked art books. I don't really like real art books, but I've always liked art books that I guess are more for classrooms or children, because they don't sort of get bogged down by telling you like why are you making it, but it just kind of gives you fun ways to make things. This is a papercraft book from the 1920s. Ed Emberley is a big influence on me. He's a illustrator from the 1970s that taught you how to draw anything out of your imagination with just a few shapes and lines. And I drew from, oh my gosh. There it is. Sorry about that. So, I mean, he taught you to draw just like him, and so I don't know if he knows this, but when you teach someone to draw just like you, they grow up and they keep drawing like you. So someday I would really like to meet him and say sorry. This book is amazing book. This came out in the 80s. It's Chinese, and it's this boy who I think was about 8 years old. And somebody like kind of represented him and helped him put out this book, and a famous poet wrote poems. But these drawings just blow me away. It's so much better than, most real artists that are out there, I guess. But I love this world he made. It's like so creative and using and so sophisticated in all the formal like aspects of how he uses line and pattern. But another thing I wanted to say that when I was putting these together is that when people talk about fine art, a lot of times composition is really important and all these things. But in the world of like stuff that's for kids, and I feel like it's really connected to comics and zines, there's a lot more appreciation of things that are just busy and crazy. And maybe it's like not as sophisticated, but there's just like a whole world there that you can look at. And busy is good, and so I've always like kind of, flipped through, when I flip through like a really fancy art book, a lot of times I just want to go back to like this because it's just so crazy and fun, and there's so much to look at. Richard Scarry is one of my favorites. This is this really weird book I found, Gia by Frank Ash, from the, I think, 60s. He filled every inch of white space with these guys. It's so crazy. And this actually reminds me of that Chinese boy, Budi. But this is an Indian illustrator, children's book. But just so much stuff and patterns, and it's just this, it's kind of, to me, it's more like life. It's just filled. And here's Gary Panner, this famous page from Jimbo that I actually did not discover until a couple years ago. But if you guys see the comics exhibit at Mocha, they have this page, the original one, and it'll blow your mind. Here's a zine cover by Joe Chiapetta, just full of stuff. So you can kind of see, I'll show you how that relates to what I do, because it's not that far from that stuff. These are kind of more of my paintings, but really the desire to kind of create this world that someone can explore for a while. And I don't know, I'll just kind of go through them, but I mean, when you're little and you can't read those books, you look at them and you kind of make up your own stories. Alexander Calder's circus is one of my favorite things ever. If you ever go to the Whitney, you can see it there. But the simple way he made these sculptures just is amazing. They all function. And I just wanted to show you kind of another thing about art and like the art books that I like. It's kind of this simple thing that anyone can do. Like I love these tinfoil dude right there. So I don't even really know if I'm an artist or what, but when I make this stuff, I'm just trying to sort of have that same amount of fun that I get when I look at the pictures. And there's a few of my sculptures, but mostly out of found stuff and clay. But that's it. And I don't know if anybody had any questions or anything, but that's my stuff.
Hi, my name is Jordan Crane, and this is Ron Regé, and I guess you can't see either of us, but we are going to read a comic for you. The Hand of Gold. Whoa. Go on down. Here. Easy there. Hey, fella. Hey! Must have taken the quick way down. It's heavy. I am not no monster. Dang. Can't hurt a dead man. Ah! Sorry, fella. What's that? A coach, or maybe a couple of riders. Can't let them see me. What if it's a goddamn posse? I ain't done nothing. Anyway, you can't prove it. Ha! I'll just hide, though. Just let them find me. Damn their eyes, I'll blast them. They ain't stopping. Always amazed me how ignorant some fellas can be. Never even open up their eyes. Just amaze me. Dang it, lock that open! Ouch! Oh, my leg. Oh, what's that? Who's there? Low down, thieving. I can see you. I'll shoot your ass off. Ouch. Dang sons of bitch matches. First thing I'm gonna buy is a goddamn lantern. Hell, I'll buy me 100 lanterns. And 100 pretty ladies to hold them for me, too. God damn it. Come on! Lousy. No good. Cotton picking. Dirty dang. No! It's mine! Let go of it! Oh, my shirt! That's a hell of a thing. Could at least left me my gun. Greedy bastard. He was gonna die anyhow. You're dead! I'll kill you!
tiedon kaikki pöllöt olivat lentäneet pois. Kerron toisille, että kuljin kauas näin nopeasti haalistuvan maan. Ikuiset meret ne kaikki rikki reviytyy. Siellä kuitti yksin taivaalla vaan. Ja tiedon kaikki pöllöt lensivät sinne, missä on tehnyt. Kerron toisille, hymyile minulle. Kerro, että olen väsynyt ja menen sinne, missä levätä saan. Suddenly you come to thrill my soul. Idela, Adela,
As maçãs envolvem os corpos nus nesse rio que corre em veias mansas dentro de mim.
Anjos e arcanjos não pousam neste Éden infernal. E a flecha do selvagem matou 1000 aves. Quieta, a serpente se enrola nos seus pés. É Lúcifer da floresta
Que tenta lhe abraçar.
Vem, amor, que um paraíso num abraço amigo sorrirá pra nós sem ninguém nos ver.
Prometo a meu amor macio como uma flor cheia de mel pra te embriagar sem ninguém nos ver.
Tragam luvas negras, tragam festas e flores, tragam corpos e dores, tragam incensos odores,
Mas tragam Lúcifer pra mim em uma bandeja pra mim.
Once upon a time, when the hot sun faded behind the mountains, the shadow of a strong man with a gun in his hand, raised to protect the poor people of the hacienda. They called him El Justiciero.
El justiciero, buenos días, ¿qué tienes a decir? El justiciero, yo soy pobre, ¿qué tienes a me dar? Tengo chocolate, quente, tequila. Paga lo que debes, el justiciero, cha, cha, cha. Y otra cosa puedo dar, el justiciero, cha, cha, cha. Y otra cosa puedo dar, el justiciero. Yo tengo 30 hijos con hambre. La guerra mi ha struppato tanto bene. Soccorro il giustiziero, aiutami por favor. El justiciero, buenos días, ¿qué tienes a decir? El justiciero, yo soy pobre, ¿qué tienes a me dar? Bésame mucho, Juanita, banana. Cuando caliente el sol.